prefer Joey on his own, or did you prefer him with a co-commentator with Taz or maybe Cyrus or somebody else?
Well, in the ECW presentation, Joey all the way. One-man commentary team. And you asked the question, is Joey the greatest commentator to ever do it, in my opinion? For a solo commentator, which I've never seen done really, yes, without a doubt. He's one of the rare cases where you really have to be. Taz was one thing because him and Taz have known each other forever. So when they did that in WWE, it was really good. The ECW WWE version of ECW, it was really good. But Joey has enough personality to be the Jim Ross, the straight commentator, and then give his snarky thing. He had the right balance of everything, that he would commentate right down the middle, call it, but then he would, with me, clueless putts. There'd be certain guys that would get under his skin and the fan would come out of him. It was the right mixture. You either have it or you don't. It's not taught. Joey's a self-taught commentator in that way. And I do believe JR is the best commentator. Well, I take that back. Okay, we can do a list of the best commentators, but I would put Vince McMahon as number one because it was his company. Of course, he could promote it. JR number two, no matter who the color commentator is, but him and Lawler, obviously. And dare I say it, Joey Styles. That's your Mount Rushmore. Number four, Jesse. So that would be the four people on the Mount Rushmore.
Team's color. If we're doing...
Yeah, but Jesse's still one of the best commentators. But Jesse would also, in a lot of ways, I know you have a lot of heat for the 3-count thing. I just feel like Jesse stood out. He's a commentator that got called back 40 years later to do Saturday Night's Main Event. Also, when he went to do Predator, I think Vince fired him, right?
Yeah.
But then they had Saturday Night's Main Event, and Dick Ebersol and NBC wanted Jesse Ventura to commentate, and they hired him back.
Well, the thing is that Predator was a massive success, so they couldn't not have Jesse back after that either.
Well, you didn't know that when the movie was being made, though. Mm-hmm. Just like Rocky III. How Hogan, if that was a flop, Hogan may never have been Hulk Hogan. But I put Jesse in there as if you're just talking about straight up commentators, you cannot leave Jesse Ventura off of that. So Vince, Jim Ross, Joey Styles, Jesse Ventura.
Maybe I'm in the minority. I like Joey with a co-commentator. And do you know, I mentioned, Taz in WWE, he also did some commentary with Joey in ECW, I think when his neck was broken. Cyrus later on.
He did the on cameras in the studio in Ron and Charlie's house. Yeah, with the banner. With the ironing board right off camera.
See, that's actually going to be a Secrets of ECW that we're going to do. Future episode, Take a drink. Shane Douglas, I thought was a really good co-commentator with Joey. He didn't do it very often, but I thought Shane was really underrated as a commentator. And I think the most recent commentary he did was for Ricky Steamboat's comeback match, like 69 or something, like a year or two ago. And,
oh, wow.
Yeah, I thought it was such a shame because Shane's
the
really
one
good.
In North Carolina, right? The one in North Carolina, he came back?
Yeah, was it FTR he was wrestling? I can't remember Ricky's.
Jay Lethal was in the ring with him. I remember he arm dragged Jay Lethal. So I might have been a 6-man. But he might have been teaming with FTR against Jay and some other people. I'm not sure. Now, I still stand. I mean, you and I can agree to disagree. I just felt like that made ECW stand out even more with one guy on commentary. It just, and nobody tripped over anybody. Nobody had an agenda. You need to have that chemistry. Joey could play the parts of both very, very well.
What else did Joey bring to ECW apart from the commentary? I mean, I know, and you know for a fact, because you were there, you were Lloyd Van Buren, you were taking phone calls in Todd Gordon's, pawn shop and stuff like that. But did Joey have any other duties beyond being commentary? Because didn't he work for like one of the Aptomags at one point, and then that's how he got into ECW?
I'm not sure. I know that Joey has a sales background, so I have no doubt that Joey had some input into the business of ECW. I'm not sure. I'd have to ask him. But he also had an outside job, so I don't think he could contribute much more. And of course, he would do, the things right by the ironing board with the backdrop. he would drive to the house to do on cameras, probably ADR. You know, post show, he would probably have to correct some live stuff or whatever. But we didn't do a whole lot of ADR with that. The ADR was actually him on camera and then commentating with that. So what you saw live in the ring with the promos, there was no WWE, like infamously when Legion of Doom, something happened with a finish, they had to come to the back and then come back and hit the finish again like 2 more times. We didn't have that in ECW. The fans would destroy us if we had to, you know, come back and do it all over again. They wouldn't like that.
You call me drinking a water, just a water, by the way.
Future episode.
Joey Styles' appearance in ECW always seemed very, very incongruous. You know, he always wore a suit. He wore the glasses. He was, I wouldn't say mousy, but he seemed rather demure and not the kind of person who sort of fit the image of ECW. Yet he was such a great personality for the show. You know, that no one's... I'm trying to think of, like, someone to compare him to, but he seemed to stick out like a sore thumb, but it worked.
Well, it's contrast. It's the Island of Misfit Toys, and he's a misfit within the Island of Misfit Toys. Did you know this? Not a secret to ECW, sorry, but it's Eastern Championship Wrestling. Joey's first try at commentary was being a heel color commentator.
Really?
Yes. And he had somebody named Six Pack with him. It was nice. And he was a heel. And you could tell he was trying to channel Jesse Ventura. But I think Paul saw other stuff. And this is when Eddie Gilbert was booking Eastern Championship Wrestling, I believe. Paulie was there, but he was a heel color commentator in the early days of Eastern Championship Wrestling.
What's Joey doing now? Is he like working for a medical company or something?
I believe so. I haven't talked to him in many months. I think he might have changed his number. I text him once in a while, but he'll text me eventually and we'll catch up. But I think it was, medical. He's great at sales. I mean, he used to work for, I believe, Fox Corp as well. That's where he was working, I believe, during ECW. He was working for one of the news media outlets as a salesperson.
Why does he want nothing to do with wrestling now?
Because he's smart. He's a good man. He doesn't have CTE or anything. I couldn't tell you. Well, it comes to a point, too, if I wasn't doing this with you, I don't even know if I'd even do the thing with Russo. I mean, if I wasn't doing both of those things, you wouldn't know what I was up to. You'd be asking questions. I'd be doing something completely outside of wrestling.
The last, I didn't write this down, so forgive me if I mess this up. I think the last time he was doing any commentary, I'm going to get to his WWE run briefly as well, but the last time he was doing commentary, it was for like an independent wrestling thing, and he made a joke about Donald Trump. This was during his first campaign, and he said, grabbing, the Donald Trump thing, grabbing women by the... that kind of thing. And anyway, Joey made a crack about that. He never said the word, and then he said, speaking about that word, I never said... here's my co-host or whatever it is, and throwing to the next person. And apparently there was such a massive backlash that the company apologized and da-da-da-da-da. And ultimately it was a fairly innocuous joke. And it was like, Joey comes from ECW where that wouldn't have even registered. And then in 2015 or 2016 or whatever it was, everyone got all up in their feels about a joke that wasn't particularly, offensive or anything like that. Then he was done.
I can't remember the company, but I remember that happening. My God, we're talking about almost 10 years ago. So, but then he should have got canceled for everything he said in the ECW because he would say all that stuff.
Yeah. Chikara. Was it Chikara? Yeah, so after his release from WWE, Styles went on record as saying he wanted to be the voice of the indies. It was Evolve he was doing, and then Gabe Sapolsky, ironically, of all people, Gabe Sapolsky, because he, was with ECW. He was Paul Heyman's understudy, I guess, at one point.
Yeah.
Gabe Sapolsky immediately apologized for the comment before announcing that Evolve had terminated Styles, and then Beyond Wrestling and Chikara also announced severing ties with Styles. And after that, no wonder he didn't want anything to do with wrestling, because what happened to people?
Well, it's also, what is he needed for? He's got a family. He's got a job. He's got a life outside of wrestling. Like I said, he's one of the smartest guys I've ever met. So he did his thing. If it served him to do it, I'm sure working for Shakar, Evolve, and all the other ones was just a fun little side thing to make a little extra money on the weekends. He didn't need that trouble.
Do you think he was happier working with WWE.com or did he want to be on screen?
Happier working WWE.com. Yeah. He was in our BWO Network takeover special that we did, the hidden one right up with the Star Wars Christmas special in '78. He enjoyed doing that, but he didn't enjoy like traveling. He didn't enjoy like having to do all the. He didn't enjoy being in the grind of that. He loves his family. He loves being at home. He's routine oriented. These are just things I know about him, So yeah, I wouldn't think he would like that.
Yeah, he used to do a couple of... I know he did a few of the early episodes of, I think, Legends of Wrestling, Roundtable. And I think at one point, this is years ago, he did a sort of on-shoot location kind of thing where he went to the jewelers where they made the $1 million belt. And he did some little funny things like in the 2010s, for WWE.com and exclusives like that, I guess, as well. And that same shop still exists. And it's also where they shot the original vignettes with Ted DiBiase, getting his belt. And apparently they really made it for him as well.
Back then, and that's what I was saying with the Vinci stuff earlier in the full episode, that you assume it's either going to be, I'm done before my first match, or they're investing a lot of money. Because even with Ted DiBiase, Vince made him stay in the best hotels, limos, and he always had, a couple thousand in spending cash? Always on him for the gimmick. So, I mean, I could have caused heat in the locker room because he was being taken care of. But
it did.
But yeah,
it did. So I believe.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Because he was flying first class everywhere as well, and he had his limo to pick him up. Yeah.
Maybe Vince was ribbing him.
That's not that's well within the realms of possibility. I'd suggest. Well within the realms.